Kid. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer Podcast. My name is Charles, AKA the Handsome Homebuyer, AKA Captain Permit, AKA
El Judío Maravilloso,
AKA. Dude, I know you've been gone for 2 weeks, but you got it. You got it.
LLS Man of the Year.
What year?
2020.
2020. Yeah. LLS Man of the Year. Quick shout out. Maddie and I have been separated, although everybody out there in the internet world doesn't know, because Matt R. Visual is the man, and he keeps the content flowing 24/7 all the time. Doesn't matter, rain or shine. But we've been separated for the last 2 weeks. He was in Morocco on vacation. Had a great time. You feel good?
Oh, yeah.
You're recharged?
Yes.
The creativity is there?
Yes, it's bad.
Did an awesome clip on you being an influencer. I recommend everybody go and check it out. All right? A lot of action this week in Handsome World. Ups, downs, highs, and lows. It's why I like this business. I said it once, I said it twice, I'll say it 3 times. It's a total emotional roller coaster out there. You never know what each day is going to bring. We got houses pouring in, houses selling out. Finally got a big commercial deal, which we'll release next week. Been working on this for 9 months. Finally got the contract executed. Lost a huge commercial deal, but I really hope it comes back. For some reason, I feel like it might come back. But before we get there, Maddie, do you know who else is an unbelievable influencer?
Captain Permit.
Captain Permit. 516-513-8838. If you need plans, if you need permits, you need anything permit related, from coast to coast, from Elmont to Montauk, decks, sheds, legalizations, commercial work, whatever you need, we got you. And you obviously know we got the best looking staff in the business. Call the captain. Know before you go. 516-513-8838. And obviously, I'm the Handsome Homebuyer. So you have a house that smells like cat pee, is dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, human waste pouring past the basement steps, land, commercial property, gas stations, you name it. If God created it and it can't be moved, I'm quick, I'm easy, I'm a good time. I want to buy it. 516-777. Sold. All right. It's good to be back. You didn't know what you were getting into, did you, sir?
Oh. Anytime.
You good? You seem very calm. So today's guest, we're going to go through the rundown. A very illustrious career and a lot of career left in him. Very active in the Long Island building community and very, very helpful to myself. He's actually he's a constant resource for me and thousands of other people. He's the reason why I had the opportunity to speak to Newsday and ended up on the cover of the real estate section. So thank you yet again for that, sir.
My pleasure.
He is the CEO of Libby, which is the Long Island Builders Institute, for 9 years, going on 10th year. It's crazy how quick a decade goes, doesn't it?
Very quick. Very quick.
Right? 4 years at Weber Law. He was an attorney, retired attorney, real estate law. 21 years at the Long Island Association. 9 years in the New York State Legislature. 14 years on the MTA board. Mitch Pally, CEO of Long Island Builders Institute. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming in.
Anytime. My pleasure.
You don't know this, but I've had my eyes set on you for a little while. I just felt like I needed to reach a certain level of credibility before I can make that call. So I want to start out by, if you wouldn't mind, for the people at home, what is Libby exactly, and what does it do?
Libby is the trade association on Long Island for mainly residential home builders and the people who are involved in the residential home building industry. Title insurance companies, electricians, plumbers, contractors, developers, builders, law firms, anybody who's involved in the residential real estate industry. And the residential real estate industry on Long Island is no longer building single-family homes, as we know, because most of the single-family home lots have already been used. So while there is still some of that going on, most of my members are now building multifamily developments, assisted living developments, multi-mixed-use developments. Some still build commercial developments with residential included in it. So it's a wide-ranging group of developers and associates on Long Island who build places for people to live.
Yeah,
basically what we do.
And how does Libby assist, support, and just kind of cultivate new developments on Long Island?
Well, we do it in 2 ways. Number one, we lobby. We are a lobbying organization, so we lobby government at all levels, local, state, federal, for laws and regulations that benefit the real estate industry and the residential real estate industry in particular. So we do that. And then we have networking of our members who talk to other members. Yeah. We bring in local government officials because, as you very well know, permits are the name of the game on Long Island, and if you can't get a permit, you can't do anything. So therefore, the ability to get permits the ability to interact with local government officials, and Libby will help members get their permits in whatever way we can, or intercede to the extent we can in that regard. So those are the ways in which we help the real estate industry when there's an issue like prevailing wage. That's going to be a very difficult issue for many of my developers who take IDA benefits. Libby is involved in negotiating those pieces of legislation in Albany, or in this case in 2019, making sure it did not pass, which benefits everyone in that regard. You know, the recent gas moratorium, we were instrumental in getting that finally deleted by National Grid, and we thank Governor Cuomo for reading all of my letters. His office finally said, "Don't send me any more letters," because I kept sending them letters of projects that were being delayed.
Yeah.
And they got the point. They understood how important this was to the real estate industry. The recent rent regulations that affect all people who have multifamily developments or rent in their own single apartment. We managed to eliminate some of the more egregious issues from the legislation, and we're going back in 2020 to try and rectify some of the unintended consequences of it. We've been asked by the members of the state Senate delegation to give them a list of proposals, which we are putting together as we speak, and we'll be giving that to them next week in that regard. So those are the ways in which Libby intercedes in the state government, on local government. We intercede in every way. I'm on Don Clavin's transition team and the new supervisor elect in Hempstead at his request. He's doing a reevaluation of the building department, which affects obviously all of my members and many people out in your audience. We are very close in all the different places. We had a big meeting yesterday about the processes in the town of Islip. We'll be meeting with the town of Brookhaven in that regard. So we intercede in any way possible with our local governments to try to make sure that the environment in which we live, the business environment, is conducive to real estate development in the appropriate places.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we continue down the rabbit hole that is this podcast, I want to encourage everybody to go out and join Libby. I joined Libby about a year and a half ago, and although I have not been as involved as I'd like to be with school and everything else, as soon as that's done next semester, I plan on attending more of the events. It is just an unbelievable resource. Like, if I have any questions, I send Mitch an email. He's literally back to me within the hour with a great referral. The network there is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, they're really there to support and give back and really, really help the members. So if you're somebody who is, flipping houses and has visions of development and grandeur, if you're a contractor, I mean, the network is just amazing.
Thank you.
And I mean, I've recommended a handful of people there, and they have thanked me a month, 2 months into it to be like, wow, I have a friend who, Old Mill Nursery. I'm like, listen, you got to join this group. You got to join us with Perfect View. Within, I think he went to one event, met up with Engel Berman, bidding jobs for them. This is the kind of life-changing stuff that could happen when you put yourself in the room with people that are doing big things.
But you have to come to the meetings. You can't assume you put your name on a list and people are going to call.
It's not going to happen.
People need to see you. They need to see you're credible, as you know.
Yes.
And they need to have a conversation with you, and then they'll put you on their bid list, and after that, you never know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very simple. Business, I always tell people, it's very easy to make money. Business has very simple principles, which is you have to work hard, you have to show up, you have to do the right thing, you get out of it what you put into it.
Right.
It's that simple. Taking a little bit of a step back, because obviously you've been involved in a lot. You have a very long, illustrious career so far. I'm curious to know about you personally in the sense of, did you grow up on Long Island? Kind of take us through the next few minutes of your career and how it evolved.
As with everybody in the 50s, we were born in New York City, in Brooklyn.
Everybody came from Brooklyn or Queens. What part of Brooklyn? I was born in Brooklyn.
Down by where Ebbetsfield used to be.
Okay.
Wherever that is now. I'm not a great connoisseur of Brooklyn at the moment, except my son and his wife live in Park Slope. That I know. That I know.
Did you move out when you were young?
We moved we lived in Stuyvesant Town because everybody lived in Stuyvesant Town for when my dad came back from the war, and then we moved to Farmingdale.
Okay.
And lived in Farmingdale from 1956 to 1963.
Okay.
Then in 63 we moved to Searingtown, which is over by Manhasset.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived there for the rest of my time on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Went to college at State University of New York at Cortland.
Okay. The Cortland,
Cortland
home of the
Dragons.
Cortland Block Party.
That's right.
And they had it when you were there.
That's right.
They got rid of it. Did you know that?
Yes, I know that.
That's
But,
tragic.
very, very great alumnus. We go back a lot. My wife and I are both graduates of class of 74, so we enjoy going back a lot.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're a very reserved, very fine man. I can see that. Was there a wild side to Mitch Pally
No,
back in the
never,
day?
never.
Even at the Cortland Block Party?
Even at the Cortland Block Party.
You-
I was not... I had lots of friends who were, but not
You
me.
didn't partake.
Not me.
So-
and then I went to Albany Law School of Union
Okay.
University in Albany. And while I was in Albany, going to law school, I was able to get a job in the New York State Legislature, where I started my career. I worked there part-time during the year and during the law school time, and full-time during the summer. And then way before I was about to graduate, the senator who I worked for, who was the chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee, who lived in Williston Park,
Okay.
here, offered me a full-time position in their department in the council's office there, and that's how I started my career, and I've been very thrilled with it since.
Did you go to law school because did you know you wanted to be in public service?
Yes.
That's
yes.
what. Yeah.
I was always going to be a history teacher. I always was going to be a history teacher. That was my goal
Okay.
until the end of my junior year at Cortland, when the chairman of the political science department corralled me and said, "That's not what you want to do. You want to go into public service."
Really?
And that's what he told me because of my great interest in government work and everything. And he said, "There's only two places you can go. You can go to Albany,
Okay.
Albany Law, or you can go to Washington at George Washington University Law School."
Those are the best places to go to law school.
Because
if
he
you are-
knew I wanted to go into public service, and
Got
he
it.
knew that I could get a position in government in some regard. So Albany was closer and less expensive at that time than George Washington for my parents. So we went to Albany, and everything has worked out fantastic since. You know, I got a job, as I said, part-time there and then full-time there, and I enjoyed my time in the legislature. Worked my way up to chief counsel to the New York State Senate Transportation Committee for a number of years. Was very instrumental in drafting the first in the nation seatbelt law, child restraint law,
Nice.
disabled parking spaces for disabled drivers. I have very honored to have lots of pen certificates on my wall in my office from the laws I helped write, and it was a great career. And I love when I read in the newspaper, for an accident, and it says, some young child was saved because they were in their child seat. You know what? It gives you tremendous satisfaction.
That's very cool.
Tremendous satisfaction.
I had yeah.
I
I
hope
had
the
no idea.
accident never happens.
Yeah.
But we know car accidents do happen, and the fact that hospitals no longer let you leave the hospital without being in a baby without being in a child seat. The mentality of people has now changed to where then that's now a normal occurrence.
Yeah.
Back in the early 80s when we did it, nobody knew about child seats.
Yeah.
Or nobody cared about seat belts in that regard. So that was a tremendous achievement when I was there.
So, just based on what you've done and what I know you do now, and I feel like this is relevant to everybody in every business, I'll say the art of negotiation, for lack of a better word, or understanding how to work well with people for the greater good. That has to be something that you're excellent at, because that's essentially what you do.
It's you have to understand, at least the way I negotiate. The person who you're negotiating with feels the same way you do. They're right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And you're right. Okay.
Okay.
And you're trying to you have to try to reach a compromise, and that's not a dirty word in my business. Okay. That allows both people or both entities, whoever happens to be negotiating, to walk away and say, you know what, this was a very reasonable accommodation.
Yeah.
Because if you assume you're going to go into negotiating and one side is going to win and one side is going to lose, that's a sure way of not negotiating in that context. Whether it's business or legislation that I had to negotiate, because you always had to negotiate with the state assembly. At that time, the state assembly was a Democratic controlled. The Senate was Republican controlled, which is who I worked for. And they didn't always see eye to eye on different issues. But we were able to reach what I call reasonable accommodations, so that everybody walked away saying, you know what, I got something out of this negotiation, and I'm going to do that. The other thing I learned very quickly is you don't go from 0 to 100 in one step.
Yeah.
Okay? You go to 30 or 40. Because then the next time you start negotiating, you start from there, not back where you were at 0 in that regard. So incremental progress is always very helpful in that regard also.
Yeah, it's a process.
Right.
And I guess in our society, especially more in the younger generation, it's like instant gratification society.
Right.
Everybody wants everything done yesterday. And it's very easy, like, you know, you go on social media and all you see is like political this and political that, and people are like reining in their opinions. I don't think people truly understand what it's like to be in politics and how difficult it is to manage and put all the pieces together to get something done.
Well, because you have other people who, as I said, who believe they are as right as you believe you are right, okay? And you are asking somebody to some degree change their mind.
Yeah.
To some degree. That is not an easy thing to accomplish. You may think, you know, people on the outside will think, well, why don't you just do X? Well, because there are a lot of people who don't want to do X.
Yeah.
And you need their permission to do X. And you have to accommodate their needs and their wishes and their goals at the same time as you're accommodating yours in that regard. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it is one of the ways in which you learn over a career to say, you know what, I understand your position. I understand you don't want to do it this way. How about if we do it this way? Mm-hmm. Can we do it in that context? So you try to come up with alternatives to make that happen.
How I'm curious to know how the position of Libby came about, and essentially what led you down the path to getting involved with Libby and Oakland.
Well, I was at as I said, I had been 21 years at the Long Island Association as vice president for government affairs, doing their government affairs work. And then I went to Weber Law Group, and law work. That was the first time I'd ever actually worked in a legal firm.
Yeah.
Even being an attorney, I'd always been in public service in some regard, and it was very enjoyable. I learned a lot about real estate, which I really had not had that much work with in the past, other than on a macro level, not on a micro level. And I knew some of the people at Libby. They had someone who they had hired, I guess, didn't work out or leave and whatever, and they came to me for advice on how to fill the position, what type of position. So I met with them, and then they asked me whether I was interested, and I said no at that time first, and then they came back and again. And at that time, it seemed to be the right thing to do. Trade association work is obviously what I did for a long time, and I thought Libby had an opportunity to, go to a different level on Long Island. So I took the chance, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I didn't refuse in that regard. So that's how I've been there. Yeah,
no, I was actually going to ask you. I was like, because what you do is it's a passion project. To do something for 10 years, you have to be passionate about it. And to do it well, you really have to be passionate about it. So, obviously, I've seen you were in public service, but what was like the fire that basically pushed you to?
Well, I wanted to get back in trade association work.
Okay.
I love the people in the law firm, but I had realized that being in a law firm was not my passion.
Yeah.
Okay. It's other people's passion, and I respect it, and I have lots of friends who are in law firms, and I love them, and the people I worked for are still great friends, but it was not enough for me at that moment in time. So when the Libby people came to me, a number of people that I had known over the years, it just seemed to be the right mix. Real estate is an integral part of Long Island. Like it or not, it is an integral part of Long Island. It's a significant part of our economy.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you put all that together, I thought it was something that I could make a difference in that regard, doing a lot of the things that I had learned at the Senate and at LIA and at the law firm to accommodate people with building houses, because we don't build houses, we build homes. I say to elected officials all the time, it's not the cement and the wood that matters, it's the people who are living in it that matters, okay? Because for them, it's their home. And that's what we try to do, and that's why I think, we provide a service to all the residents of Long Island, because just about every place that anybody lives on Long Island was built by a Libby member. And that, to me, is very, very worthwhile.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So, from just a general business, whether it's not-for-profit or business, you decide that you're going to take the job as CEO of Libby. Now, you see what the entity has done and where you can take it. I mean, what goes through your mind? What are the steps? What is the process, in the sense that I think a lot of people are afraid to take the first step, and they don't know how to organize, their business, whether again be a not-for-profit or a for-profit company. It seems very overwhelming. So you being in that position, having a lot of responsibility, having these dreams and goals to bring Libby to where it is today, where do you start? How do you execute?
You can't. I always, whenever I do something, you cannot start immediately and say, you know what, if it was done this way, now we're going to do it a different way. You have to learn. You have to figure out. There are people there who have been there for many years who have different ways of doing something. You cannot assume that just because you're now coming in, their way is wrong. Their maybe would be right, and you need to accommodate your goals to them in that regard. So there's some analysis, evaluation. There's a time period over which you let things go along, and then when you see something you think could be done differently or better, depending on your point of view, you do that gradually, because I've always felt you can't. There are people involved. There are people's psyches involved. There are people's needs involved. You have staff. They may not know you directly right away that closely. So the better way to do it, I've always found, is to do it gradually. When you want to make changes, that's fine, but don't go from A to Z. Go from A to D, and then the next time go from D to F, or whatever it is, so that it's not done. So that somebody on the who you're changing, because somebody is being changed, doesn't object just because of the fact that you're changing it. They need to also see that it's a better way to do stuff.
So I myself am not the most organized person. I realized that's one of the things I want to be.
Right.
Are you the kind of person that, do you sit down, do you lay out a business plan each year? Do you say, this is what we want to accomplish in the next year, and these are the steps we're going to take to do it?
I make a list every day.
Every day?
Every day. I have a list on my desk. I even put stuff on the list that I've already done just so I can cross it off. Okay?
Just so it looks like more things
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling of satisfaction. Oh, I did that. Let me put that down. I'll cross that off. But I'll make a list every day, first in my head, when I get up, and then when I get to work, of okay, what do I need to do that day? Mm-hmm. Some of them are small things. I have to call X about something, and I'll put that down, and then I'll call them. And when the call's done, I'll cross it off.
Yeah.
If I left word they're not there right away, I'll put LW, left word.
Yeah.
And I leave it on the list, so I know the next day that has not yet been done. I still need to do that, or I put big things on there. I'm involved now with the Attorney General's office on issues relating to racial discrimination on Long Island. So I have a variety of things I need to do, and so I cross them off as I do them. But that's been on the list now for a couple of weeks, because there are still things I need to do, because I'm waiting for other people to do stuff with it. So that's how I'm organized. I try very hard. As you know, because you've seen me, I return emails the same day.
Yep.
I get them, if not the same hour, because I want people to, when I send something, I want people to say, oh, you know what, he got back to me, I got to get back to him. Because if I'm sending somebody an email with a question, I need to know what the answer is, and I can't make that answer myself. I return phone calls the same day I get them, no matter when it is. Even if it's after 5 o'clock and I just leave a message, the person who gets the message the next morning knows he took the time to call in that regard. That to me is very, very important, because you're interacting with people. People have different desires, different needs, different personalities, whatever it is, and I'm trying to interact with them. That's how I stay organized. And to the extent I can, luckily I have a calendar that gets full, which is fine. I love being busy. I spend a lot of time out of the office, which means I have a great staff who takes care of a lot of the details on things as we go along. and it's been very, very accommodating and very beneficial.
Mentally, this is something that I've been struggling with because I tend to have an addictive personality with whatever it is that I do. So when I work, like, it seems like you work a lot, and I've seen you out at events at all kinds of days and hours. I'm trying to figure out if there's such a thing as balance and how I can turn it off. Do you ever turn it off? And if you do, is it hard, or do you not?
No, I turn it off on the weekends. I mean, I'm at a stage in my life now where my 4 children have now gone on to their own careers. They've moved away. The closest, my son lives in Brooklyn. My oldest daughter lives in Westchester. 2 of my other daughters live in New England.
Okay.
So I turn it off over the weekend, very much so. I try to turn it off some nights. When I don't have an event, I'll just sit and, my wife and I will watch the Kaminsky Method, or we'll watch Mrs. Maisel. We just finished the next season of The Crown. Okay, we have different things, and then when baseball season comes, all we do is watch baseball
together.
She is a fanatic Yankees fan.
That's really nice.
I am a fanatic Mets fan.
Oh,
okay.
So it's constant battles,
back and forth. People say we have a mixed marriage. It's not that I'm Jewish and she's Catholic. It's that she's a Yankee fan and I'm a Mets fan. Okay, that's our mixed marriage. And we watch baseball, and I'll sit there and I'll read the newspapers. Okay, and that's my way of relaxing, or I'll read my book, whatever I happen to be reading at the moment in time. And I don't read stuff on today. I can do enough of that in the newspaper. I read historical stuff. I love the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, so I'll read everything I can find on that. And that just gives me a feeling of, I've segregated this part of my life from that part of my life.
Yeah.
One of my first bosses said to me, anything that can happen on Saturday can happen on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay? So just Saturday and Sunday is for you, for family, for doing what you need to do. I referee soccer on Sunday, which I love doing.
Nice.
I coach a women's soccer team of young ladies between the ages of 20 and 30, which is fantastic. But that's my way of just, I understand what I need to do. It'll be there Monday. I'll do it on Monday.
Yeah, but if you don't recharge, and you'll be
right.
No, it makes sense.
It's my way of, when I'm refereeing soccer, I'm not thinking about the next real estate deal.
Yeah.
I'll think about the next real estate deal, but at that moment in time, I'm thinking about what I want to think about.
So you had you mentioned your kids in regards to like where they live in their location, which is an interesting segue to where I wanted to go, which is over the last 20 years or 30 years or the course of your career, how you've seen Long Island changing in regards to, housing, trends, market. Ultimately, a lot of young people are leaving, which is a very big problem.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wanted to get into commercial development is because I want to be part of the solution to that, and I have some ideas for that. But I don't think people realize when people are out there screaming, "I don't want this. I basically don't want anything. I want to park there." They don't realize what's going on and how much trouble Long Island's in my opinion.
Well, the demographics of Long Island have changed dramatically over the last 20, 30 years.
Yes.
So that we all know, okay? Diversity is much bigger on Long Island, at least in some places. We have an aging population, okay? And, my guys can't build assisted living facilities fast enough.
Yeah.
As soon as they build it, it's full, okay?
Yep.
Or over 55 communities. As soon as they build it, it's full. And it doesn't matter what the rent is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Cost is not the issue. Convenience is the issue for people. And that's what they want, and that's what we give them. But having said that, the people who live in single-family homes, which is still the predominant way, including myself, okay, need to understand that the more people who live in rental apartments on Long Island benefits the single-family home community, because it increases the value of their homes, because over 80% of all the single-family homes sold on Long Island are sold to people who already live on Long Island. Okay, we don't get too many people coming from Austin, Texas.
I'm just saying, okay? I just want to buy a place.
Right, that doesn't happen. Okay, you're already here.
Yep.
If they're not here, they're not coming here to buy your house or buy my house when my wife decides that, the 5-bedroom house is no longer necessary, which she may never do, but that's her choice, okay? Other people decide, you know what, I want to sell the house now that the kids have gone and move into an over 55 condo or a rental community or whatever it is, or maybe at the stage of life where they need assisted living because of their health, whatever that happens to be. They're selling that house to somebody who already lives here, okay? At the higher level, they're selling that house to somebody who most likely already has a single-family home.
Yes.
At a lower level. I don't mean lower level, I mean it price-wise. I don't mean it community-wise. That first person who's now selling the house to move into the next house is going to sell that house to somebody who's in a rental apartment, who now has decided Long Island is the place I want to live, I want to raise my family, my career is good enough, I'm going to stay here, okay? If they're not here, if those rental apartments are not here, if those young people are not here to buy the first house, the value of that house is going to go down.
Exactly.
The value of the higher houses, and leave the East End out of this question, that's a whole separate market, okay? Because that's a seasonal market. The value of the middle income houses are going to go down. Why? Because if there are not a lot of people, it's supply and demand. If there are not a lot of people looking for the house, the value of the house is going to go down. So I always say to people all the time, the rental apartments that we're building on Long Island are there for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is so that the single-family home community market stays strong.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the part most people don't realize. Yes, we need rental apartments to have places for our kids to live. Of that, there is no doubt. That's where they want to start.
Yes.
They're no longer. We all started in apartments. Okay. When I started my career, I lived in an apartment in Albany. Okay, and walked between the law school and the legislative office building. We all started in apartments. We just may not started on Long Island in an apartment.
Yeah.
Because when I came down here, I had 4 kids and we needed a bigger house. But everybody starts in an apartment somewhere. Why not let them start an apartment on Long Island? They start their career on Long Island, whether they're working for Canon or working for any of the major companies or working for small companies like you do, okay? Or have your own company, okay? You got to start somewhere.
Yep.
They don't want the white picket fence house yet.
It's not the, yeah.
Okay? Not yet. They will at some time, most likely, if they're here. And that's our goal, is to make sure they start their career here.
Yeah.
Because if they start their career here, they're more likely going to continue their career here. And that's going to help the single-family home market as we move along. And that's what I try to convince people of. We've had some successes in the past. The only place you could look at was Patchogue, okay? And I tell the mayor all the time, who's a great friend, I no longer use Patchogue as an example because at one time it was the only example. Now other communities are realizing that rental apartments, especially in the downtown areas, do 2 things. It keeps the young people here, and it benefits their local business community. I'm not driving to downtown Patchogue to shop. I live in Stony Brook. It's only 9 miles. I'm not doing that, okay? It's not my nature. But if I lived in downtown Patchogue, what would I shop? In Patchogue, okay? And that's what Farmingdale has realized, and Mineola has realized.
Huntington
has realized. Westbury is now moving forward. They just rezoned a whole slew of property by the train station. And there are a variety of other places that are finally beginning to realize how important that is. And that will be a tremendous benefit to our economy.
Yeah, and it seems like it's happening faster in the villages. Obviously, it's easier in the villages, less amount of people.
Yes,
but it has to happen everywhere because trends are changing.
Right.
And I mean, I would also argue that let's face it, Long Island. I love growing up in Long Island. It's amazing. I'd like to be it the rest of my life, but it's traditionally not the most diverse place in the country.
Correct.
And I think the key to survival and flourishing economically is to have a healthy balance of everything. So when someone moves into an area and they're like, all right, I'm going to pick X town, Wantagh, Seaford, whatever it might be, Stony Brook, it's nice to know there's an assisted living facility there that their grandparents or parents could be. There's, apartment buildings where their kids could be. Like, it's a diverse mix. It can't be all single family all the time.
And that's the other part that is finally beginning to happen on Long Island, because Long Island was developed in a way in which we segregated uses. Retail was in one place, residential was in another place, commercial and office was in a separate place, okay? Now we're beginning to realize all that did was make everybody get in their car to get a bottle of milk, which doesn't accomplish anything. Now people are beginning to realize, wait a minute, let's integrate all those uses together in a neighborhood, okay, even if we have to build a new neighborhood, to ensure that people can reduce their dependence on the automobile and live and work and play in basically the same area. And that has been a tremendous benefit in those places that are moving toward. The AVR project in Yaphank is one of those examples. Islip Pines, which is going to be built in Islip by the Sirota Group, is another example of that. Some of the downtowns are beginning to realize, hey, wait a minute, I already have retail there. I have some offices on the outside. Let me put some residential there so people can move around in that regard, so you can live within walking distance of where you work. It is what has happened in many other communities around the country. And, Long Island, we're always behind the times, but we're finally beginning to realize. We're working now on a plan to put residential development in the office parks along the 110 corridor. Okay?
Nice.
So that people could decide, hey, you know what? I work in this office, maybe I'll live here. Besides the fact that we already have the parking lots there, and after 5 o'clock the parking lot is empty, why not put those parking lots to good use? That's what they're finally beginning to do with the Nassau hub.
Yeah.
We had all this cement.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of all that cement? Why not put it to good use in that regard? So those are the changes that I think you're going to see more and more communities adapt to shortly.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it's hard enough to get anything done on Long Island, but now you have the issue of Long Island pretty much being built out.
Right.
And that there is a shortage of land. And, parking requirements are heavy, height limits are very strict.
Well, we're still looking for the fourth floor.
Exactly. Exactly.
In both places. Yes.
It's not easy. I'm also curious to get your feedback, because this is something that I've been kicking around in my mind. You have aging population, you have millennials leaving, and I guess I'm not a millennial. I'm right on the cusp of it, but I hear the concerns.
You're a millennial in thought, if not in age.
I'm an Xer. I just turned 40. I'm an Xer, and I'm proud of it. I would have liked. I was born end of '79. I always say I would rather have been born in the '80s, so I can have one of those made in the '80s shirts and not be lying. But affordability is a very big problem. We flip. Thankfully, probably more homes than anybody, and the prices are nuts.
Right.
And the market, people are very, very sensitive to the taxes now due to the new tax structure, which makes sense.
Yep.
When you have the median sale price of a house in Nassau County is $550, $575, and you don't give kids the opportunity to rent, and bigger companies have left. It's not a recipe for anything
good.
Well,
that's why, we have a 3.5% unemployment rate, okay? Most of them, and we still have, people think there's no manufacturing that happens on Long Island. There's still a substantial amount of manufacturing that happens on Long Island. It just doesn't happen in one place like Northrop Grumman or Fairchild like it used to. There are hundreds of manufacturing companies around Long Island that make a wide variety of goods. They can't find employees. They have jobs. They can't find employees. And when they find employees, they can't get them to come here because of the housing costs.
Yes.
Okay? That's the hardest part, to accommodate them. So what we're working on now with the manufacturing consortium is a plan to try to expand that at market rate rentals so people can start their career here.
Yeah.
If you can start their career here, you'll keep them here. The problem, of course, is the cost of the land, because we don't build any more land, goes up.
Yep.
Okay? And the taxes are significantly high because of the school districts.
Yeah.
So that's why IDA benefits are so important in a housing context.
Yeah.
Because you need to reduce the cost of the development of the project.
Yep.
And they don't bring in school children because these people are not having school children. Okay, it's still a win-win for the school districts, although we fight with them all the time. And that way you can build the type of developments that young people want. They fill the manufacturing jobs. They'll start their career here. They decide, I want to make a career working for whoever I'm working for. Maybe it's Canon, maybe it's Nature's Bounty, whatever it happens to be. Whoa. And now I'm gonna buy a new house here, and I'm gonna buy somebody's house. That circle works, but it only works when you fill in the parts of all the different aspects of it.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of people that have to be involved in that. I would argue, like, so being now in NYU and being exposed to the city, we went for a field trip to Roosevelt Island,
Right.
the Cornell
Yep.
school that was there. And we sat down with Ted Pinsky about a month ago and talked about it, and I thought that was brilliant. That was like the perfect way government was getting involved and saying, "Hey, listen, we've been dependent on the financial markets. Things are shifting this way. Kids want to work in cool tech type of places.
Right.
We have to give them a forum to do that."
Well, that's why, the Nassau Hub is a perfect example of that, okay? You're going to have entertainment there with the Coliseum. You're going to have entertainment retail. But you have Sloan Kettering, which is right there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have other medical facilities right there, offices right there for research. And you're going to have 500 units of housing so the people who live there can work there.
Yeah.
So in reality could never leave the 70-acre site
Yeah.
and get everything they want within
Yeah.
the 70-acre site just by walking around or riding their bicycle.
Yeah.
That's the type of development that
People
is
want.
essential and that people want.
Yeah, and like
They don't want to get in their car and drive 45 minutes on the expressway,
yeah, no.
okay, and work there and then have to drive 45 minutes back. They don't want to do that anymore.
No, and I think I don't know if it's a lack of education or a lack of people not wanting to know, but like I think there's a lot of misconceptions about certain things. Like going through this process with the Oceanside development, it really was an eye-opener to me for two main things that I think people don't truly understand. A, they don't truly understand the IDA. They think us as developers, we're just someone is coming up with a truckload of money
They
and
think
saying,
they're giving
here.
you a check.
Yeah, which they're
Right,
not.
which they're not. Right.
And two, I think people don't understand the concept of affordable housing and what it is.
Right.
Affordable rentals, subsidized on the senior level especially.
Yep.
Because when I went out there and started having these conversations, trying to educate people, you would think that I was the worst person in the world.
Right. Because you're the developer. It goes with the territory.
It's interesting. It was a really a growing experience, and when I was doing it, I was like, you know what, I want to be out there. I want to be exposed. I want YouTube videos. And now I'm like, you know what, I understand why the development community typically doesn't do that, because it's, to your point, you're trying to change people's opinion, and it's you by yourself, and there's 50,000 people that are like with pitchforks
Who believe the exact opposite of what you believe.
Exactly.
Right.
And I really what I really want to get out to everybody, I think, is, and I think you agree with this, is being less judgmental, being open-minded, and having better communication for all of us in every aspect of our life is vital.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
It's vital.
Because as I said before, you have to understand the person who you're standing across from or sitting across from is well-minded, well-meaning, and they believe exactly the opposite of what you do. Okay? And for you to accomplish something, you to some degree have to change their mind.
Yeah.
And changing somebody's mind when they know they are 100% correct is not easy.
Yeah.
And it can't be done by threatening them.
No.
And it can't be done by throwing things at them.
Nope.
Or calling them an idiot.
Nope.
Or why do you believe that? You have to understand why they believe what they do and then work with them to accommodate their needs.
Without a doubt.
Without it, if you can't do that, it's a surefire way of disaster.
So I have three kind of final questions that I'll kind of roll into one and then let you run with it. At 67 years young, what is the future of Mitch Pally? What do you see as the future of Libby in the next 3, 5, 10 years? And then ultimately the market in Long Island and the trends, what do you see for the future?
Well, I just signed another 1-year contract. I had been on 3-year contracts. Now I'm on a 1-year contract because I'm getting to the point now where one of these days, my wife is already retired from her teaching job at Wantagh High School, and she loves going to visit her grandchildren, of which we have 5, with 2 more coming.
Wow.
Whenever she wants to, on her schedule, not on the school district schedule, which is why she did it, and that was great in that regard. I still love what I'm doing, and I've told my board, every July we'll sit down and figure out what the next year brings, and they were very accommodating to that. They've been great to me in that regard. I love them, and they seem to like what I do. Libby is going to continue to be involved in the changing nature of Long Island. We have lots of communities that still believe that only single-family homes are the way to go, and that's wrong. So we need to accommodate the continuing changing demographics and diversity of Long Island. The Newsday series of articles pinpointed one of the issues on Long Island, but not all the issues relating to real estate. Yes, it is segregation and against the law to steer people to certain communities. Of that, there is no doubt. But if all we do out of that is put 15 brokers in jail, we haven't changed the nature of Long Island.
Yes.
We also have a problem where we steer projects to certain communities and not to others.
Yep.
And that is as much of a problem on Long Island as the steering of individuals. And I've made that case with the Attorney General's office and still continue to do that, and will continue to try to accommodate that. The recent final success in Matinacock Court in East Northport after 32 years of development. You think you got problems with permits? 32 years, okay? They're finally going to break ground in the spring. That's one of my members.
It's like my life.
And what had to be done, they had to go to the U.S. Supreme Court twice in that regard.
I hope that was a subject to deal.
But that's the type of project, and I don't use project negatively, development, that is essential for every community on Long Island to have in that regard, to add to the diversity, not just diversity by race, which is important, but diversity by income level, diversity by demographics, diversity by religion. That is all essential for every community on Long Island to have. So that's my next series of goals. We also have water issues in Suffolk County because, as you know, Suffolk County is not sewered.
Sewer.
To the sewers is finally beginning to understand. People get to understand the benefits of it.
Yep.
And so communities like Mastic Beach, like Smithtown,
they would
like
change the
Kings
game.
Park, what they just did in the Hot Bog Industrial Park.
Are people resistant against sewers?
People have been resistant in the past because they haven't wanted the development change that comes with it.
I got it.
They're finally beginning to realize that if they want their community to change and prosper, like other communities have, you have to have sewers. Say all the time about Patchogue. Patchogue had two things very few other places on Long Island had in Suffolk County.
Okay.
They had, number one, leadership from the mayor.
Yes.
And number two, they had their own sewage treatment plant. Okay? If you don't have both, you got no shot. Okay? Yeah. And that's why even places with leadership, like Smithtown now with Eddie Werheim, the new supervisor, realizes he can't accommodate what he wants to accommodate in his town unless he has sewers. In the downtown areas, especially downtown Smithtown, St. James, Kings Park, all the people in Kings Park came together, which is very difficult. Got them all, and they all said, you know what, we need sewers. We want more restaurants. We want apartments over stores. We want our young people to live here. We can't do any of that without sewers. And so they got $40 million from the state, and their sewer construction starting next year.
I was just going to ask you that. What's involved on the state and federal side to get that done?
Well, first of all, is money.
Yes.
Okay, which is not simple to get.
No.
Mastic Beach got it because of Sandy, because of the devastation there.
Yeah.
And they are now going through that process. They just had the referendums.
Are they definitely getting sewer?
They are definitely getting sewers. The first portion of it will start in 2022.
Okay.
The building of it. So they are definitely not the whole community at the moment.
Do they have it mapped out?
They have it all mapped out. You can see on the map where the sewers are going to go, where the lines are going to go, where the next phase is going to go. Some of my developers have already gone down there because the town of Brookhaven, because the village dissolved, as you know, is very interested in new development in the Mastic Beach area.
Absolutely.
And many of my members are going down there, talking to the town, looking at the map, trying to put together properties to be ready when the sewers come in.
Yeah.
Which are definitely going to happen. Kings Park, they're going to start construction. They're going to run the line down to also accommodate downtown Smithtown, which has no sewers, and then to go into St. James, which also has no sewers. And there will be other communities on Long Island on which that will happen. We try to accommodate residential development along Route 58 in Riverhead. Why? Because Riverhead, Route 58 has sewers.
Yes.
Okay? So as the big box stores go out of business, why put up another big box store? Why not put residential development in that area? It makes a lot of sense in that context. So those are the type of changing nature of things that we're trying to accomplish, which is why Libby is involved in all of them.
but it takes time, and it's
takes
taken a
time.
long time to get to this point.
It's taken a long time, and it will take a longer period of time. But the metrics are good. Community support in some places is good. Elected official support in many places is good. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
No, it's amazing. How for people that are out there that are in the real estate and development space and want to get involved in Libby, how do they get in touch with you guys? How do they reach out? How do they find you?
They can either call us at 631-232-2345. It's a very easy number. It's the only way I remember it. 631-232-2345. Or they can send me an email at mitch@libby.org. Very simple. And we'll be more than happy to talk to them, explain to them the benefits of being a Libby member, what they, not only what they will get, but what they have to put into it, as you know, okay? We had 450 people at our holiday party the other night, mainly young people gambling and walking around and winning raffle prizes, and it was fantastic. It's a great way to be in the holiday spirit. We're going to Albany starting in January to work for Long Island. We work very closely with our fellow organizations, Long Island Association, the Association for Better Long Island, which represents the commercial developers, SIBS, the Commercial Industrial Brokers Society. We all work together to try to benefit the real estate industry on Long Island because it's so important to us. That's so. Those are the two ways. We'll be more than happy to talk to you, tell you about the benefits of being a member, and send you a membership packet, and then you can decide whether it's worthwhile or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't stress enough to my my counterparts out there, whether you're flipping 6 houses, building 4 houses a year, have visions of having your own REIT one day, whatever it is from any scale, I urge you to get involved. It's an unbelievable organization. It's a great resource, and there's just a tremendous amount of benefits for everybody involved. Mitch, I really appreciate it. You're a gentleman, sir. Thank you for coming out. Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you at the event in January.
Absolutely.
Good.
And obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, it's dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, human waste floating past the basement steps, land, trailer parks, gas stations, self-storage, office buildings, I want to buy it. 516-777 sold. That's a wrap.
Orgulloso estoy de mi herencia judía. Benjamín Leven Shlomo, cuando me llaman a la torre así me llamo.